Hello and welcome to ABW Preview. It's the Arsenal v Spurs game, and with me this afternoon, it's only Drew. All right, Drew.
Hey, buddy, how are you?
Fat and bald.
It's
great that you got yourself a new computer because your video and audio is now perfect. It's only taken 5 long years. But Apple couldn't afford to sell a kidney. Anyway, yes, it's good to have you back on, Drew. And people will be seeing more of Drew this season whenever we need someone because he said he can come on. That's lovely. Yeah. Right, so yes, we're going to have to go through the stuff for the Spurs game. It's tomorrow afternoon. No, it's Sunday afternoon. I've put Saturday here. Straight away, there's an error. So it's 4:30 kickoff. Right. And you can see in the UK and Ireland on Sky Sports Premier League, Sky Sports Main Event, and Sky Go Extra. If you're in Australia, it's Optus Sport. In Canada, it's DAZN, apparently. I don't know how DAZN is DAZN. Yeah. In the USA, it's NBCSports.com, Telemundo, NBCSN, and if you want to listen to it on the radio, SiriusXM, which is a radio that you get free with every new car, apparently, so Joe Rogan says. And if you want to listen to it on the radio in the UK, and probably anywhere you can get the radio, it's on BBC Radio 5 Live, and apparently Arsenal Player. But I think you might have to log in and register on Arsenal Player. Yeah, and you do?
Yeah, it's not free.
Ah, there you go, scumbags. And today's surprise country is, Jason ruined this last time. Oh, it's my favourite part of the show. The Seychelles. Oh, it's going to be lovely and warm there. You can see it there on Flow Sports PL, which I should think is Premier League. SuperSport 3 Africa. I was watching SuperSports earlier today, trying to find a game. And SuperSport Maximo. Right, Drew, do you want to do the head-to-head?
Yeah. So out of 164 matches, we've won 66, lost 52, drawn 46 against Spurs over the course of it. Last 2 league matches at the Emirates, it's important that we've taken 7 out of 9 points. Most memorably, the 4-2 last season. Oba had his brace. 2-0 season before that, and then a 1-1 draw with that Wimmer own goal in 2016-2017. So we have the form going into it at home, at least. So in the last 5 home matches for us in the Premier League overall, 3 wins, a draw, a loss, including 2 clean sheets, and then Spurs have not won away from home in their last 5 outings away from.
Oh, that's great.
So yeah, no excuses.
Yes, that's someone. There's a Premier League table of the last 15 Premier League games, and Spurs are 4th or 5th from bottom.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a thing of joy, isn't it? And Harry Kane, I was looking at the stat. I put the stats further down. So injuries and suspensions. Bellerin and Tierney have been seen hand in hand walking through the Arsenal training ground today, which is it's stunningly wonderful. I'm not sure you've seen the picture, haven't you?
Yeah, I've seen.
I'm not sure what makes me more happy, the fact that those 2 are walking without crutches, or the fact we have a number 2 at right back and a number 3 at left back. It's a toss-up between the 2. Probably best of both. I just love to have players playing in the right number. Does that bother you at all?
It does, actually. I'm kind of a stickler for tradition, so yeah.
Yes, good. No more 17 at left back, and I don't know whatever number Bellerin. What 24 was he?
Yeah, I think so. Sounds about right.
Mavropanos, so those 2 and Mavropanos should all be back in full training in September. Ozil might be back. So, yeah. For Spurs, Foyth is suspended, and Ndombele, Sessegnon, and Walker-Peters are all out injured. Actually, I've heard that Ndombele might be suspended as well. Actually, I don't know. I did write this late, about 4 a.m. this morning, while I was listening to someone on Twitch walking around New York, listening to all the people do their singing. So I don't know what I wrote. And Dele Alli and Eric Dyer have late fitness tests, but Dele Alli is one of the most overrated Premier League players of recent times. Do you agree with that?
100%.
I've got 2 friends that are Spurs season ticket holders, and both of them, the first thing they said when I spoke to them recently, Dele Alli, overrated, absolute nonsense, liability. I thought, oh, that's excellent. That's a good way to start a conversation.
Up there with Lingard. Lingard's equally as overrated. So
yeah. Oh, that's why England are doomed. Right, we're going to move on to Spurs formation. Right, this is what I've written, and we'll talk about the formation after, and then Drew can point out how wrong I was, because Drew is a bit of an expert when it comes to formation. So I've put Spurs have played 3 Premier League games this season. They started at home to Villa with a 4-3-1-2, then played a 4-2-3-1 away at City and at home to Newcastle. We all know how that went. Kane starts as the main striker with Lamela behind him, and any two of Eriksen, Moura, and Son out wide. Did see that Moura played up front for the first game of the season with him, and he came on. I think they bring Moura on when they won a goal, didn't they?
Yeah.
Sissoko starts in the middle, or with either Winks or Vinks?
Winks, he's English.
Winks. Or Ndombele, who is injured beside him. So it'll be Winks then, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
The back five is much more settled with Lloris in goal, Rose at left back, Alderweireld, whose name I can never bloody say, and Sanchez as the two centre backs.
I'll get you saying names properly before the hour is out.
Toby. They're the two centre backs with Walker Peters at right back. He was injured in the last game, so you would naturally think Serge Aurier, who is for me a magnificent. I suppose, would you say he's more of a wing back than a right back?
I think it's more of a wing back. I think it's more of like a Kolasinac, where he's better at getting forward and really influencing matters further forward. Defensively, I think he's quite suspect.
So you'd have thought that that'd be the ideal time for him to come in, but in the last game he wasn't even on the bench. Celso, thank you, came on for him in the last game, as Aurier seems to be out of favour now. So that's what I've wrote. Drew, how wrong am I?
I think you're pretty spot on, but there have been a couple of people I've talked to who have posed the idea of Spurs going with a back three instead of a back four, simply because injury and suspensions, notwithstanding and whatnot, and maybe Sissoko playing right wing back, which would be interesting because he often forgets to defend more often than not. And if Oba's playing on that left flank, he could probably rinse them all match long. So that might be an interesting potential matchup that we have in our favor going forward. I don't know if Pochettino is going to go with that back three, but if it does happen, I think if we start with our best front three possible, so if Lacazette does start, which he should, I think Pepe and Oba on the flanks, I think we'd absolutely have a field day against them.
Who's their other, the other ex-Ajax player they've got as a centre back?
Vertonghen.
Oh, is he injured? Because he's
out of favour.
Is he?
He's fit. He's just not playing yet.
Ooh, because I would have thought Vertonghen, Toby, and Sanchez as a back three are pretty formidable back three, wouldn't they? As three central defenders.
Especially because Alderweireld and Vertonghen are pretty mobile. Both of them have played either left or right back for Belgium as well as Ajax in the past. So it would have to be decent, but then just again, they're also so susceptible to being beat for pace, though. And you have so much pace and so much directivity with Pepe and Aubameyang. So I'm not quite sure.
So Aurier is out of favour, as well as the centre back whose name I've just said and completely forgotten already. Vertonghen, that's it. So yes, that's two really good players that have fallen out with the manager. I get the feeling that things aren't all brilliant at Spurs at the moment because Harry Kane doesn't seem to be happy or even overly fit, does he?
I mean, Eriksen as well. Eriksen wants to leave. I think that's clear. I think a lot of that's due. I think Pochettino is kind of fed up as well. I think that's filtered down into the team. This is obviously complete speculation. I don't have a clue, but just by given things that you've seen in the media, just maybe the way the players carry themselves on the pitch, they come on and they just don't even seem to be asked to put in a decent shift. So if there was a better time to play Spurs, I don't think we've run into it yet. I think this is the right time to really kick on and rebound from the Liverpool result. So it's perfect time more than any.
Okay, so you think... So if you had to put some money on it, what would you put the money on their formation going to be? 3 at the back or 4?
I think they'll still stick with the 4, just because I think they want a little bit more or to get as much influence as possible further forward. But then again, if anyone's paying attention, they'll know we're still susceptible on the flanks as well. So playing with the back 3 and having those wing backs bomb forward constantly might give us a spot of bother. But then again, they're susceptible to being on the counter. And we did show in the first half against Liverpool that we can effectively sit back deep, soak up pressure, and try to counter in those wide areas through Aubameyang and Pepe. So I think there's some options, and I think both managers have some questions that can be answered if they get it right. Then I don't know. I don't know if it's going to be. I don't know. It should be in for an even match, but I think both teams have the same weaknesses. Really, it's out wide if you really want to be honest about it. So, and the defensive third rather. So. Yeah, I'm not quite sure what they'll do, but I'll say back 4 for now, but a back 3 wouldn't shock me either.
Yes, because I was looking at their Premier League formations from last season, and they must have used about 10 different formations. And the longest run they had, this is always starting formations according to Transfer Market. They don't, when their game progresses, managers, as we all know, often change their formation. But only the most number of times they started the same formation was 3 last season, and then the next game they go and change it again. And it wasn't even going from like they played this season a 4-3-1-2 to a 4-2-3-1, where you're just moving one or two players around. It was going from a 4-4-2 to playing 3 at the back to playing 5 at the back to doing all that kind of stuff. And you think that's got to drive the players nuts when you don't. Being Arsenal fans, we know what that's like. But at least Emery has a kind of basis for his settled formation if he has the right players, doesn't he?
Well, I think so for this season, yeah. We look past at it when he was at Valencia and Sevilla, large spells when he was it Spartak Moscow, and then when he started at PSG, it was 4-2-3-1. Obviously 4-2-3-1 can morph into a 4-3-1-2 or 4-3-3 or 4-2-2-2, depending on what you want to do. But I think the basis for him was always going to be sort of that base level formation. But Pochettino, for better or worse, likes to switch things up a little bit. But I'm kind of with you on the fact that I think players want that consistency. They want to know that week in, week out, their overall tasks on the pitch are the same inside that same base level formation. So it just makes adaptation easier, makes their job on the pitch a little bit easier. You can have more cohesive movement on and off the ball, both when you're in defense in transition and when you're in the final third, when you're in that sort of same stratosphere of, instructions. So I don't know. Again, but we saw it last year, right? Spurs lost how many times in the league last season? 12, 13?
A massive amount, yeah.
And then, so I guess you could say maybe Pochettino was similar to Emery, where if he got it wrong, he'd make those adjustments at halftime and then get it right, or he would get it right and then make too many changes and then get it wrong at halftime. So both of them, I guess, kind of tinkerman a little bit. But again, Spurs consistency, kind of like us, is probably their biggest weakness. So they happen to be consistently not playing well right now. So again, good time.
Yes. Right. Let's talk about the Arsenal lineup. I'm just clicking on a few windows here, so I lose track of what I'm doing. You were just saying about that different players were being used in different formations. I think that when we have Tierney and Bellerin come back, then our two right-sided defenders, our two wing. Are not going to be wing backs, are they? They're going to be. He's going to play a 4 at the back. So our right back, our left back, our goalie, our front 3. So that's going to be 6 players plus Torreira. I think he's going to be one of the first names down. Ceballos, I think he is going to be. So we're getting to the point now with our formation when people coming back from injury that we'll be able to predict with a certain amount of certainty what our formation is going to be within middle of September, aren't we?
Yeah, I would agree. And again, you kind of want that. And that's something that you see across any other of the big clubs. Bayern regularly used relatively same 11 week in, week out. Dortmund, Juve, Atletico Madrid, Real, Barca, all like City, Liverpool as well. Certain things won't change. You might rotate one or two of the midfielders out. You might rotate one of the wide positions out. But again, the key positions need to stay the same. A lot of former players from maybe a decade or two ago always used to say, you never want to change your center back pairing frequently. You want to stick with the same keeper. Midfield pairing should be the same. The spine should be the same always. In an ideal world, if you want to swap out one winger one match, swap out a left or right back one match, that's fine. But the spine has to be the same, right from the back to the front. Really get that cohesive nature throughout the team. It makes a big difference. So I would agree with you that I think when push comes to shove, at least in the league, because I think we'll rotate in the domestic cups and in the Europa League. But in the league, have to. Yeah, no, I agree with that. In the league, we have to have that relative same best 11 week in, week out, injuries dependent, form dependent. If players need a bit of rest, that's okay. But the same positions I think that you already highlighted are the ones we really have to sort of nail down and say week in, week out is what we can expect from us. And I think it'll give us our best chance moving forward.
And also I like the fact that we have shifted out older players and we are now using younger players that have come through the academy at Arsenal who are going to be happy to go, well, you're not regular starters. You're going to be on the bench. You may be starting a few games, but these younger players will come in and they'll slot in perfectly, as we saw in the first 2 games of the season with Nelson and Willock playing. And they look like they've been playing in this system with this team for years, when one had been out on loan all last season and then the other one had been playing mostly under 23 games. With Freddie Ljungberg last season, and the likes of, we were hoping that Smith Rowe was going to come through, but the Arsenal under-23s drew 2-2 away at Derby last night in the under-23 league, and Derby were the league champions because I think they have the Southern League and then they have the Northern League in the under-23s. We won the Southern, Derby won the Northern, and then they play off against each other. And I think Derby won that. I'm sure that's how it goes. I've not looked at it for a while. And Emile Smith Rowe got stretchered off last night. I've not heard anything any further news on what his possible injury could be. But that is a player that would slot in straight behind the front three, and that's a player I'm really looking forward to seeing. But I've seen some tweets of people saying just give him to Red Bull now, just so can get that upper come on. Even halfway through that, I thought, I'll give up. You've not got that bloke whose name begins with up.
Upamecano.
That's it. They're saying just ship him off to there and get him in January as soon as possible. So it's looking really good. So what would be your formation you pick for tomorrow?
For us, I don't know. I think for me, winning the midfield battle against Spurs is key. Winning the midfield battle any week is key. If Ozil's not fit, which I don't think he will be, whether it's because if he's sick or if he's actually carrying a little niggling injury or if he's just not match fit and ready to chuck him into a North London derby for his first appearance of the season, I think you have to stick with a 4-3-3. I think Torreira has to start. Simply that we need that proper defensive-minded, midfielder in against Spurs, against a team who could easily field, Son, Lucas Moura, and Eriksen behind Harry Kane in any formation. We need that. And still, I'm not confident with Granit Xhaka being the deepest midfielder, or Guendouzi, who I thought's come on quite well, but I don't think he needs to be that deeper option. I think he's too mobile, too forward-thinking, still positionally unaware when we're off ball a lot of the time, so he'll have a marker just go right by me. It's not really picking it up. I don't think he can fit in there, but I think we have a balance of, I think if you put Ceballos and Guendouzi ahead of Torreira in the midfield three, I think that would be solid enough for that. I think you've got Guendouzi can pick a pass from deep. He can drive play if he needs to. He is mobile. He can step out wide to cover the flanks if it's necessary. Ceballos on the ball gives you more press resistance, which I think we definitely need against Spurs. And again, Torreira has that defensive mindedness where he can link the back four with the midfield, and then hopefully we can progress play that way. If we're looking to be directly on the counter, though, I could see why Xhaka might come in the team. He can play that 40, 50-yard long ball over the top where Pepe or Obi could find some joy on the flank. So I think there are some options, but certainly for me, the biggest thing is, we're at home. We have to play the right way, right? We can't. I was fine with sitting back against Liverpool at Anfield, but at home against Spurs and North London derby, you have to take the match to them. You can't just sit back, I think. I do think Spurs are good enough to kill you if you give them enough chances. If they keep whipping balls into the box, we don't have anybody in our defensive line that can deal with Harry Kane in the air, really, consistently. So I think try to pin them in a little bit, play direct, play Oba and Pepe on the flanks, play Lacazette from the start, let him link play with midfield with Ceballos. I just think for me that would be the best formation moving forward for us for tomorrow, for sure.
Yeah, I agree with all of that a lot. I think the most important thing is if Xhaka plays, he can't be the one getting the ball from the centre-backs or doing the tackling. That's not his job. Torreira plays there, and then Xhaka can play next to any one of Guendouzi, Willock, or Ceballos, any one of those three. But people get on Xhaka's case. Xhaka isn't a defensive midfielder, is he? It's not his job to go and get the ball, is it? And stop people.
No, it's not. And I mean, you can appreciate the fact that he does like to come deep and maybe build play, but again, he doesn't offer you the press resistance that somebody like a Torreira or like a Guendouzi does by coming deeper, can beat his man, is a little bit more mobile. If he gets caught on the ball, he's easily beaten. So I'm with you. He can't be that deepest option for me. That's why I think Torreira has to start. I even think Guendouzi did okay in that same role, but I even think Torreira is so well versed in it. It's the role he plays for Uruguay. It's the role he played at Sampdoria before he bought him. It just makes sense to use him there. So I think midfield three gives you the best option for winning the battles, gives us a better ability to transition, a better balance in midfield as well, a bit more work rate as well. So yeah, I just think that's the right call for me.
And already this season, we've seen Guendouzi and Xhaka have a pass success rate of over 90% in a couple of games this season. And so I think now that our central midfield is where we are really strong if we use the right players in the right positions and bring on substitutes at the right time. But yeah, I agree with all your formation. I take it you'll go with Papi and Luiz at the back.
I don't really know. Part of me thinks maybe Chambers over Sokratis, keep Luiz in, simply because I think Luiz and Sokratis still make the same mistakes. It's like having Sokratis with Mustafi, the same mistake. Both step too early, too often. But I would have Luiz over Sokratis because he's slightly better in the air than Sokratis, who really isn't actually good in the air at all.
Yeah,
It offers you another mobile center back option. He has the wherewithal enough to be able to step into the area just ahead of the defensive line, because he did feature as a defensive midfielder for the Fulham. He did come through Saints as a right back. So if he has to drift out wide to deal with some pressure, he can maybe do that a little bit more effectively. I think that's just a better balanced center back pairing than Luis and Socrates. I think that's key for us as well. And I think Chambers is also at least decent in the air, not so keen on stepping and making those, costly positional errors as well. So, he's also not, he doesn't have a history of bringing players down to the box or being I think it's going to be important because we know Spurs are going to dive. Even with VAR, we know Spurs are going to be looking for calls. Harry Kane will be doing it. Lucas Moura, same thing. You have Lamela. Those three players, particularly Son as well. So I think it's important that we don't have two center backs, despite their experience, who have a history of bringing players down maybe a little bit too often, especially in danger areas. So I think getting that center back balance has to be key as well.
Yeah, one of the notes that I got here is Kane has 4 goals in this fixture in the last 5 meetings, 3 of which have been penalties.
Exactly.
Says it all, doesn't it?
Spurs are nailed on to get a pen at some point.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Or yellow cards for diving, hopefully, if VAR's on their game.
That's the hope. But as we saw today, and there's 2 matches today that happened.
The Leicester one.
Midday, where calls that were called differently in the previous week did not go the same way. So even with VAR, calls aren't being nailed on same sort of parameters every single time. So you never really know. You can't really gamble on saying that VAR will get it right. VAR is not going to always get it right. So.
Was that the Aston Villa one where on the edge of the box, right near the edge of the end of the game, and he went running through the box and was tripped over?
Yeah, there's that. And there was also in the Newcastle match, their leveler, Fabian Schär's leveler, the ball dropped him after a handball dropped it to him. And as we saw in a match before, 2 weeks ago, where that same instance happened, and it wasn't taken back this time around. So again, it's imperfect because VAR is being controlled by humans, just looking at the replays that VAR provides, and it's their judgment call that's going to give you the chance or not. So there's no guarantee that you're not going to get the right call.
One final thing on tactics. Are you worried about Kolasinac having to play left back? Do you think he can be disciplined enough not to constantly make runs forward and then having to have one of our centre backs pull out to the left to cover for him?
I don't think it's him that's doing it. I think it's Emery. Emery was the one last season telling him to get forward. I don't think he just let Kolasinac keep doing that week in, week out without telling him.
His crosses are brilliant.
No, they're not. But that's, again, I don't think that's down to the player. That has to be instruction. Something that works only 50% of the time and keeps happening, that has to be a call from the manager. If it wasn't working and he didn't want it to happen, he would tell him you have to sit further back, or he would stop relying on the runs from the left back. People have to also understand that he was very, very good at Schalke, but Schalke, 2 things. 1, he was used as a wing back because they played 3 at the back. And 2, their pressing regime was 50 times better than ours. They would regain possession further the pitch far more easily, and thus he would be far less exposed regularly because they would cover that space in behind him, or they would just regain possession if it was lost, and he wouldn't get caught up so much. That's where we struggle. So that makes him more exposed. And that could be a worry against Spurs, who on their day press pretty consistently well. I'm fine with him playing there as long as the manager tells him you don't have to gallivant forward every single time we have the ball, particularly because we have Oba, who is going to want to tuck in if he gets the ball and try to get a shot with his right foot. Ceballos is mobile, so Ceballos can tuck out wide if we need to utilize that space. Kolasinac doesn't have to always come support. It's just about finding that balance when we're on ball, and if we get that right, I don't think it'll be an issue.
As long as they can arrange who is going to go and cover at left back when he does go on one of those runs. I noticed that Ceballos was doing it a lot when in the Liverpool game, that he was playing over to the left, and I think that hampered his game where he didn't have such a good game at times. And as long as it's organised, I know Guendouzi is really good for that, going and covering other people's positions when they're making a move or they're caught out of position or something like that. I really like Guendouzi. I mean, I really like Guendouzi anyway. I think he's a fantastic player, such a great prospect, and he's good news that he's going to sign that new contract, isn't he?
I agree with that. One of the players you can build looking forward. If you get lucky enough and he's happy here, you can keep him for the next 10 years and not have to worry about it. And a key role for the team. So that's the hope.
Lovely. Right. How long have we... I thought my mouse has stopped working. We have been doing this for 24 minutes. It's the longest one ever. Talking tactics with Drew. It's wonderful. Right. So what's your prediction for the game? I'm going to go 2-2 because VAR is going to screw us over.
That's fair. Close. I'll say 2-1 to us. Just I can't say that we're going to get a clean sheet. I never can really say that, but I think there's enough about us moving forward to really give Spurs a nightmare at certain times. So I'll go 2-1 win for us.
Excellent. And what other podcasts can? Oh, well, say that again.
Pepe to get his first league goal for the club as well. I'll say that.
Nice. That would be good. One of hundreds to come. Okay. So where can people find you on Twitter, and what other podcasts can people find you on?
You can find me on Twitter, which is at FMLeher, which is FMLEHRER. And I also am a regular on the Avenel Roadcast podcast, which is the podcast for You're My Arsenal. And you can also find me writing for You're My Arsenal. I also write for Get German Football Network, and I also write sometimes for FM Base, which is a Football Manager blogging community. So yeah.
And I can see you on with Tom as well.
Yes. Good.
And what was that other podcast you're doing about tactics? Was that with Ross?
That's going to be, it's in the works, and that's going to be a tactical preview podcast for the Gunner podcast with Mike and Andy.
Oh, Mike and Andy.
Yeah.
Couple of little tarts. Right. I think that's everything covered. That's been a really interesting one. There you go, people. If you've enjoyed what Drew has said, go follow him on Twitter and go and watch him on various podcasts, because you will learn something. And he might even try and correct you when you get all of the players' names wrong, which I usually do.
Just you, though. Most people don't have that track record.
Oh, dear. Right. Thank you very much for your time, Drew. This has been brilliant.
Thanks for having me again, buddy.
See you later, everybody. And tomorrow's show, 10 minutes after the game finishes, it's going to be, I don't know who it is. I've got no idea who it's going to be. I never do know. I should have checked this before, but I haven't. So we will see you later. Press stop and then end the broadcast. Goodbye.
Goodbye.